everyone, it's Deb and I'm here with a quick card tutorial. Um, Today what we're going to use is some of Tim Holtz Distress and some embossing ink and some gelatos, which I now sell in the store. Some of the Finnebear art ingredients mica powders. In this case I'm using the pewter, and this one is called Deep Water. And then I'm using some Inkadinkado stamps, because the person that I'm giving this card to really likes hummingbirds, and I just thought this was such a pretty hummingbird in this set. So I'm using that along with the flower. Then you're going to need a card base, which in this case I've got just a pre-made card, and here you'll see I've put down some tape, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You'll need a piece of lace. Now, this is not lace from the Gone Artsy store, it's just a scrap that I had, but it was polyester, and I really liked the flower pattern on it for the hummingbird that I'm using. So, and the other thing is you want your lace to be a synthetic lace. You don't want to use cotton, and the reason why is because once you lay this down, cotton tends to leave behind little fibers, and once you do the process, you'll end up with little fuzzy fibers sticking up on your tape that are covered in ink, and you don't want that. So, best to use a synthetic fabric, or I'm sorry, synthetic lace. And there's a rough side and a smooth side, and you're going to put the rough side down when we get to that point. Okay, and then you'll want a dry paper towel, and I've got a brayer. You don't need a brayer. You can use your fingers. You can use a bone folder, anything that will help you to smooth this down. Okay, so let's get on with the project. Oh, and you'll also need a small piece of scrap cardstock. All right, so you'll see here I've put down 3 pieces of tape. I use this red line tape. I also have some Sakura tape, but I didn't have it wide enough. So, and I wanted a little bit wider. They also make like a 1.5 inch, which would have been absolutely perfect, but I don't have it. So I'm making do with what I've got. This is double-sided tape, and I've put down 3 strips, and now I'm going to put my last strip down. So basically what you want to do is put it right on the edge and as close to the other one as you can without overlapping, because you don't want a gap, and I'll bring this up where you can see it, in between where you'd be able to see a white line. So I've got that on there, scissors, and I'm going to cut this off. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up so you can see. So I've got it really close, and you can see I haven't adhered it down really well yet, but you can see there's no gaps in between. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my brayer and go across it and make sure that it's really stuck down, and work in those edges especially because you don't want any gaps. Oop. Piece of old paint from using my brayer. Okay, and now I'm just going to go across it this way too, just to make double sure. And there's no possible way that there could be a gap that doesn't get filled. Okay, so those are on there good. And now I'm going to take the edge here, and you can kind of see here, let me put this behind it. You can kind of see I went over the edge a little bit on just the one side, not on the side where I started. So I'm just going to trim that up to make it even. And of course, tape is always fun to cut because it sticks to everything. There we go. Okay, so now I've got a smooth edge. And then it's time to just start taking your cover of your tape off. So I'm going to peel that back. That's one of the reasons why I like the red line tape so well, is it does peel off so easily. And that's important to me because I have a hard time getting the tape backings off. Okay, so I'm going to throw those away, and now you can see we've got 3 pieces of tape, or 4 pieces of tape stuck on here. I've got a few fingerprints on there, no big deal. I've been working with micas earlier, so it's still a little on my fingers, even though I've washed my hands. It does stick really well. Okay, so now you're going to take your lace, and actually I want my card folded for this so I don't get it all over the back. And I'm going to center this on the tape where I want it. So I think That's about right. Right out. No. If you don't get it where you want it, it will peel off. That's not a big deal. So you can readjust it, but I think that should be right there. Okay. So now you can see I've laid the tape across, or I mean the lace across the tape. And I'm going to take my brayer again and push it down. And just make sure it's really stuck to that tape. And again, you could burnish it with your fingers like this, or a bone folder, or whatever you have or want. I just use the brayer because it's handy. And it doesn't matter if your ends stick out the sides because we're going to take the lace back off anyway, so don't worry about that. All right, now normally you would start with your lightest color and then go to your darker color. Especially if you're using glitters. But in this case, I wanted the darker color to be my background. So I'm going to use the deep water first. And you see, this has a little well in it. And as I said, it gets all over everything, so be prepared. And that's what the paper towel is for. You just want to make sure that you don't get a whole lot of residue behind where you're working. So just wipe it off. Okay. Now, I have a makeup brush. I tend to buy makeup that has, you know, like blush compacts that have brushes in them, and I don't use them. So I take them out and use them for crafting because I buy my own thicker brushes for makeup. So that's what this is. Now, when you have these cheap brushes, beware that the strands do sometimes come out, and you may have to pick one or two out, but that's okay. You know, it's not a big deal, and it's a cheap, free way to work with your crafts. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get some on my brush. And you don't need a whole ton, so you know, shake off a little bit, but you want to be fairly generous to get good coverage. And then all you're going to do is just start brushing it on. Okay. And here I've got a couple of those makeup strings, so I'm just going to pull those out. Normally they come out easier than this. Okay. And move on to the next section. And I'm working right over the lace. Okay. And once you get your first little section of it on, it goes a lot smoother. Okay, I'm working right through the lace like this. Get those stamps that way. Okay, now I've got it completely covered. And I'm going to go back now and pull out these couple of little strings that I see from the makeup brush. It wasn't too bad. And then just touch up where you think you see any spaces that you didn't get good coverage, and really work it into that lace. Okay, so I've got it worked in really good in that lace. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to, actually, let me clean this up first so I don't get it all over the back of the card. And as you see, I hardly used any out of that jar. The stuff goes an amazingly long way. Okay, I'm going to grab a wet wipe. We'll make it easier to pick it up. Okay, and now I'm going to wipe it with the dry towel. Okay, I just really wanted to make sure that I didn't get it on the back, so setting it down, and now I can put my cover on my blue, on my deep water. Close that up. Get this out of the way, and I'm finished cleaning up a little bit here. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is take your brush brush, sorry, and scrub it out and get as much of that darker color out as you can. Unless you have a second brush laying around, you can use a second brush too. but I'm just going to show you what I do, and this is, I just clean it out so that I can move on to my lighter color. And I'm not gentle with it at all. These brushes don't last me a long time because of that, but that's okay. I don't, you know, I have plenty of them from buying blush through the years, so. Okay, now you can see all the, well, maybe you can't, but there's a whole bunch of the strands that came out because it is such a cheap brush. And if that bothers you, then go ahead and, you know, use a more expensive brush for your projects. Okay, so I'm going to dry that off. And I'm going to get a clean wet wipe for my hands so I'm not leaving fingerprints behind. All right. So now I'm going to get another paper towel, and I'm going to just take it and wipe right along the edge of my card to get off some of that excess that was there. And I'm going to flip it and tap off again, and you'll have to keep cleaning, but this stuff really does attach well, so you don't want to, you don't want to wait until the end to do all the cleaning. Clean up in between each step. All right, so now I'm going to peel back the lace, and I'm just going to take a corner of it and peel it back. Now, you could wash this and use it again, but here you see we've got a beautiful lace design right on the card. However, it is sticky, and you don't want that. So we're going to go in with our second color, which is our pewter, and we're going to repeat what we just did. Now, this won't stick to the blue parts very much because there's, you know, it's saturated with the blue color. But it will stick where the lace was laying. So I'm going to take my brush, same thing, fill it up, and I'm mostly going to concentrate in that lace area. Okay, and then I'm just going to go lightly over the top of the whole thing just to make sure that it blends well. And there we have it. Now I do have a couple of strands from my brush blush in here again. And pull those out. And just re-wipe. And that's all you have to do. Okay? And I'm going to turn it over and tap again. Not as much needed when it's just this light color. And there you see we have a beautiful glossy metallic-y looking lace print on there, and it's kind of got a lavender pink tone to the lace area. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for a second, and I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to grab a baby wipe again and repeat cleaning. Okay, so now we have our card base, and I'm going to take my flower from the Inka-Dinka-Doo set, and by the way, the name of this set is Mindscapes, and I'm going to put my flower right in the center, and I want to make sure that I align it according to, if you can see on the back here, there's a bit of a grid. I want to align it so that I can get the embossing ink to be in exactly the same spot when I go over it. So I'm putting the tip of one petal and the center of the other two petals along the grid lines. Okay, push that on there. And I'm going to use some Hickory Smoke Distress Ink by Tim Holtz. Okay, I'm just going to ink this up. There we go. Okay, and now I'm going to, right in the center here, I'm going to make just a little tiny dot, and I would do it with pencil. I'm doing it with pen, but only because it's the only thing I have handy. And you're going to line that line up directly with that so that when you go over with your embossing, you'll know exactly where you want to be. Okay, and the purpose to a rock-a-block is you rock it to get good impression. Let it sit for a second. Always let your stamp sit for about 5 seconds to absorb the ink off of the stamp. Okay, and then I'm going to pick it straight up. And I see I missed a corner here, but that's okay. We can make that work. So I'm going to, since I have that line, I can go back in with more ink. And I can make it just a little tad darker and make sure that I get all of those corners. So having that line makes a big difference. Okay. So I think I got it right there. Go down and rock it. And there we go. It's a little blurry, but it's okay. It's still made a really pretty flower. Okay. So now I'm going to wipe that off, and I'm going to use my embossing ink. I'm going to stamp up my flower with that. And I want to make sure that I don't have any around the edges, so I'm just going to wipe it. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to go back over and find my line. Oops, I got it upside down. And do the exact same thing again. I'll line it up, put it down, and I'm going to rock it. Okay, there we go. And it basically, embossing ink is just, it's like a glue. It's a very, very light glue that will dry. So I'm going to let that dry for just a second. When it's heated up, it dries hard, so I don't want to do that. And now I'm going to take my brush and my same opal color, and I'm going to go over that so it picks up and holds that opal-y color. Which this, I'm sorry, it's pewter, but it looks really like opal. And that's going to blend it to the lace on the other side. Okay, so now you have that iridescence on the flower as well. Okay, so that's the base of our card. Now the next thing you need to do is take your cardstock, and we're going to do our bird. Now this is just a piece of scrap cardstock, and I'm going to put my bird on here. Let's see, make sure I lay it right. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to use, actually I think I'm going to use, no, I'll stick with the same one. Just for consistency, I'll use the same hickory smoke. And I'm going to go stamp this up, ink this up, so it's okay. And now I'm going to print my image, and I'm just going to stick it on here, put it down, and I'm going to rock it and make sure that it's got good coverage. And then hold it for a second and let that ink transfer. Okay, lift it straight up, and there we go. Now see, this right here I'm not worried about because I'm going to be cutting around this anyway. All right, so now we've got that on there, and I'm going to heat set that, whoops, because it's a distress ink and it might run. All right, now I'm not going to cut it off yet. What I'm going to do is pull my gelatos out, and I've got 3 different colors. I have Fig, which is like a very, very, very opally pale pinky purple color, almost the same color as that pewter. And then I've got Black Cherry, and I've got Aqua Dulce. And these are all the 3 colors that I'm going to use to watercolor this bird. If you've never used uh, the gelatos, these are like they're kind of like a crayon-y feel, but they dry. You can use them solid over like a stencil and they will dry, or you can use them as a paint. There's just so many ways that you can use these, and there's lots of videos out there, and I encourage you to research it and see what you can find. Okay, I'm going to clean my hands off because I still have a lot of mic on, so give me just a second. Okay, so I'm going to be using these today as a watercolor. And so I'm going to just take my colors and I'm just going to put a little bit, not much, right on your craft mat. And these, all of the gelatos are available in the Gone Artsy store. I don't have every single color, but I have a lot. I have them in the double scoops and in the regulars. These are the regulars. Okay, so I'm just putting a little bit on my mat. So as you can see, just tiny little dots. And I'm going to take my brush, and I'm using a fairly fine brush, as you can see. And I'm just going to mix it in with the gelatos. And I'm just going to go in and dab some color in here and there. And this is watercolor. You know, you want it to look like watercolor, so you don't want it to be consistent and perfect. So I'm just dabbing it in where I think it would look good. And get a little more water. If you think it's too dark, you can, you know, spread it out right on the card still. Okay, so I think I've got enough purple. And so now I'm going to move on to this kind of aqua color. And I'm going to go in and fill that in. And I can see, I think I need a little more of that. That's going on really light. So I'm going to add a little bit more of that, make it just a tad darker. And I chose these colors because I thought they would look good. I'm using a little more green. I thought they would look good with the deep water and the pewter mix. So, mixing that together again. And it doesn't matter if you go outside of the lines because you're going to be cutting this out anyway. Just a touch more water. So you'll excuse me, I'm busy coloring and not talking. So I'm just coloring this in with the gelatos. And it's, like I said, I'm basically using it like watercolor. I'm not worrying about staying in the lines. Okay, I'm going to go in now with just some water and kind of blend the two together. And I'm thinking now it needs a little more purple here and there. So I'm going to add a tad more purple. And the purple is just a little more intense, so I want to be careful. I don't want to get too much of that. Okay, so I think that looks good so far. You can see what I've done. Okay, and now I'm going to move to the fig color, which was the third color, and I'm going to do the body in the fig, which is a really pale, like I said, almost the same opalescent as the pewter mica that we used. Okay, and I'm going to put that in the body area. And across the beak. Okay, so I just wanted a little touch of that. All right, so now I'm going to heat set this again. Just actually, it's not even so much for the setting as it is just to speed it up so we can move on. Okay, I'm going to wipe up my mess here. That was just easy cleanup, just a little bit. And I'm going to bring this up so you can see. And gelatos have just a tiny, tiny bit of sparkle to them. And I don't know if this will pick it up or not. I'm going to try. But you can see where I just kind of gave it that watercolor effect. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to cut this out, and I will, I'm going to go off screen to do that, so I will be right back. Okay, so I've got my hummingbird all cut out, and I'll bring it up here close for you to see. There we go. So it's cut out, and I hope you can see a little bit of the sparkle, but it's not showing up too well on the screen. And we've got our card base, and I've got some pop dots. And so I'm going to adhere one of these right down the center there. Oh, I didn't get that on straight. I'll pull that back off. Right down the center. And then I'm going to put another one on the tail part. And I'm actually going to cut this in half because it's a little big. They come in different sizes. These are actually foam strips. They're not actually the quote brand of regular pop dots. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. And now I can peel this back. And I want to center my bird so his beak is kind of right in the center as if he's getting nectar. So I'm going to put my bird on. There we go. And there you can see the base of the card. Okay. And now I'll add a sentiment here at the bottom. It is going to be a Mother's Day card. And I will add it to the inside, and I will show you the final result. The main purpose to this video was to show you how to do the mica powders with the lace, and also to give you a little something of what you can do with the gelatos. Both are available in the Gone Artsy store, and these micas are fantastic and last such a long time. You get so much for they're normally $5. I sell them for $4.50, and this will last you a long, long time, and you can use them in multiple ways. And the gelatos, you saw how very little I used for this watercolor effect. Now, if you used them straight over a stencil, you would use more, obviously. But again, these are very reasonably priced. I believe they're, don't quote me, but they're around $2.25 or $2.35, something like that in the store. So go take a look, and I will leave links to the store and to the actual products. I'll give you the names of what I used, and I hope you'll give this a try. It was a really simple project. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to add one more thing. I decided to go with the letters MOM, and I have these glitter. They're by Michaels. They're the Recollections brand, and they're a little too bright, so what I'm doing is just taking my brush in the pewter, and I'm just brushing over to mute them down a little bit, and that will add to the effect on the card because it will make it similar in color to that. So I'm just brushing that on, and it's just muting some of that glitter down a bit. So I went from this to this, and it'll make it blend more. So I just wanted to add that so I could, a little bit on the end there so I could show you what I'm going to do. All right, thanks again for watching.